I also see that we are joined by our General Manager and CEO, Deborah Johnson. And I do not see any other directors. Can anybody double check? All right.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay. I would like to open the public comment to anyone who would like to address the committee regarding any topic listed in the published meeting agenda for the current and immediately preceding month. If you wish to speak and have not already done so, please either raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. During this time, the committee will not offer any direct comments or responses. However, if you would like to be contacted regarding your public comment, please email the RTD board at rtd.directors@rtd-denver.com. Are there any hands raised? I don't see any on my screen.
Committee Chair Guzman, this is Jack Kroll, Executive Manager of the Board Office. I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Righty. Were there any emailed comments to the committee? I did not see any before logging on.
Committee Chair Guzman, there was one that I sent probably right after you logged on. An individual who was pleased to see the agency's efforts regarding Transit Equity Day submitted an email to the board office that I'm reading as being intended to the full board related to expanding Free Transit Day to every day of the year and contained a number of questions about how to go about doing that. So I forwarded that to you all for your awareness.
Is that from a Mr. Brian Wilson?
It is.
Okay, thank you. All right, not seeing any hands and not having anything else to add, we will close the public comment section. Emails will be attached to the transcript of the committee meeting when practicable. We will close that section and move on to recommended actions. So tonight, there are 3 recommended actions on the agenda. The first item is for the approval of the 2025 Finance and Planning Committee Work Plan. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved. Second.
Oh, I was trying to catch up with who said that. Looked
I,
like
I, I think it was Geisinger and O'Keefe.
Geisinger, O'Keefe. All
Did I
right.
get that right?
I think there were other voices, but
Let's call the movement Geisinger and the second O'Keefe. Thank you very much for your help, y'all. This is a team effort. Before I ask Doug McLeod and our Chief Financial Officer and Jack Kroll, Executive Manager of the Board Office, to add their thoughts, I just did want to say thank you to the directors, to the RTD staff, and especially to Vice Chair Benker for their work on this plan. We do have a good plan moving forward that will ensure our committee's focused on the right work, the big picture items for the year. And so as the chair of this committee, I am committed to seeing the work plan through, and I look forward to working with all of you to ensure we get our work done. With that, I'd like to see if Doug McLeod, our CFO, or Jack Kroll, Board Office Manager, have anything to add at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Doug McLeod, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you for your work on this, as well as the committee's work and the board's work putting this together. This is a fluid document, a living document, excuse me, that with opportunities to change. We believe we have a full contingent of good items. Just a reminder, we will be doing a training session, a board training session on March 4th for finances. Which will also help supplement some of the items we'll be covering. Mr. Kroll, did you have anything you would like to add?
I'm fine.
Sure, I'd be happy to add some additional color here. There is one clerical error that I will fix after today's meeting. It says that you all were set to approve your work plan in March. You're ahead of schedule, so I will update that accordingly. I do also want to flag for you all, speaking of trainings, in April of this year, you all are set to hear a discussion related to an equitable transit-oriented development policy, or ETOD policy. There will actually be a training on TOD on the 18th of this month, so next a week from today, that I would highly recommend, even though that's specific to new directors or being done, I would say, as a result of many new board members coming on, the material there will certainly be applicable to the work all of you do. So that would be a good one to check out in advance of that. And then as this is a living document, as issues arise, I do want to point out that far out on the work plan in January and February of next year, there is a lot of open space for you all to consider some additional topics. So as things arise over the course of the year that rise to the level of being worthy of the committee's time and consideration, know that you have some flexibility on the back end of this to build in some additional discussion and robust consideration of items of interest to the committee.
Thank you. Directors, are there any questions for you about the work plan at this point? Hold on one second, Joyanne. I see your hand raised, but Vice Chair Banker and I did have some email communication quickly today. Did you want to bring up your thoughts here? This would be the place to have that conversation.
Well, you sent me an email and you did respond completely. My question was, and it really goes to the executive committee too, the discussion about having another board retreat coming up either in June or July. The discussion that I've heard over the past couple of weeks is that it was at that point we wanted to set our goals for 2026. And so once those goals are set, then we can build a budget around our goals, and then the two can meet. And it's going to take a little while, I think, to make those budget adjustments. But I'd like to be able to start working on the budget, although Doug will not be here. Doug, we will miss you. But it'd be nice if we could start in June or July, because it takes a long time to put together a budget. So thank you.
Thank you. So on our work plan, for everybody's edification, we do have a conversation slated, a discussion item from the committee in June, calendared, and again, fluid. So if we can move ahead with that, I'm sure that staff will meet us where they can, but we have to be mindful that that is a longer process. So I just want to make sure that that discussion's out there. Also, sorry, CEO Johnson, just real quick, another part of that conversation was to look at the federal funding, and that came out of the retreat, but also we know we're under a continuing resolution through March. And so we'll be waiting for a government relations report. Again, also going to the executive committee that will give us any updates depending on what happens at the federal level with a spending bill or a continuing resolution at that level that will filter down to the committee and its work on budgeting for 2026. CEO Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good evening, all those that are assembled. Deborah Johnson, General Manager and CEO. In relation to the retreat, I just wanted to put forward for this body's consideration, and more so the greater board's consideration, when looking at a retreat, I believe it's advantageous to have one no later than June, not July, recognizing the process that we undertake to develop a budget and the statutory requirements to have a draft budget that's posted for public review by October 15th. For all intents and purposes, if in fact you all were to gather and decide upon goals, whether they're for the board or for the position in which I currently hold, be it for me or someone else, I believe we would be behind the 8 ball relative to what we're doing from a financial planning vantage point. So I provide that in the spirit of being collaborative and working in tandem, that really anything after June would be much too late. And I have conveyed that to the chair. I know he's not here this evening, but just wanted to share that for everyone's consumption for full transparency. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam CEO. So good thing that we have 2 members of the executive committee in here. Hopefully we can, between the 3 of us, make sure that that gets back to Chair Bouquet. Joyanne Rusha, Director Rusha, who joined the meeting about 10 minutes ago. Sorry, I forgot to recognize you. Others were speaking, but please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for letting me crash your work plan discussion. So this is Director Rusha, and I am the chair of our Operations Safety and Security Committee, just for the record. And I wanted to just flag that some of the items we had thought would be worthy of discussion for our committee could also fit under this committee as well. And I will follow up with you via email, but I did mention this to GM CEO Johnson. The East Colfax BRT, while it is, we're acting as a pass-through entity, it clearly, involves our services. And so we thought that getting an update sometime this year, because we are now that we're in the launch stage of construction, would be beneficial. However, if this committee could fit that into their calendar, I think it would be just as reasonable. But of course, it's going to be up to you, Mr. Chair, and your team. But I wanted to at least just flag, we might ask you to Red Rover an item or two related to both planning and services. Thank you.
Thank you. We certainly do have some wiggle room on our agenda to do that. So I will work with Board Office Manager Kroll, and we will see where we can slate that in, perhaps near May. I think that was one of the lighter months. If that is acceptable, CO Johnson, would that be a problem?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm totally amenable, but keeping in mind it's contingent upon our coordination with our peers at Dottie, as they have a project management team as well, from a consulting vantage point, and also staff. So we could put forward a request, but I would ask the board for flexibility, recognizing that we would be partnering with a jurisdictional entity. Thank you.
Would it then be advisable to have them as an invited speaker? An invited entity?
If I may, yes, I would recommend that it's an external entities report that is provided at the beginning of the agenda, recognizing that they would be external to the organization and more so basically be coming here to engage and inform all of you in your capacity. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Kroll, we can follow up later. Anybody else? All right, let's move the question. Are there any no votes on moving this forward? And I will remind you, this is not a finished document. This is a changeable document going forward. Right, that looks like it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Our second item is for the Certificates of Participation, Series 2015A, refinancing. This is for the RTD Board of Directors to adopt the attached resolution number blank, the COP resolution, Series of 2025, authorizing refinancing of Certificate of Participation, COP, Series 2015A. Do we have a motion?
Second.
I have the move-in as Director Catlin and the second as Director Geisinger. I would like to ask Doug McLeod, Chief Financial Officer, and Brendan Morgan, Senior Manager of Debt and Investments, to present this item to the committee. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Guzman. Doug McLeod, Chief Financial Officer. As you mentioned, I'm joined by Brendan Morgan, Senior Manager of Debt and Investments. We do have a presentation to walk through this evening. This is a favorable action item in terms of the finances of RTD, in that it will potentially save RTD interest expense on its debt service over the next several years. We will have a presentation that basically discusses the basics about RTD's debt process, the debt options we have available to the agency. And then we'll go into the actual transaction that's being proposed, where we're looking for approval from the committee, followed by the board in 2 weeks. So Brendan, Mr. Morgan, are you ready to begin the presentation?
Yes, Doug, good evening. Thank you for that introduction. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brendan Morgan, Senior Manager of Debt and Investment Management for RTD. Hope everyone's staying warm this evening on this frigid evening. We've got a brief PowerPoint that will walk through talk a little bit about RTD's existing debt, a little bit of background, and talk about the refunding that we're recommending that the Finance Committee and hopefully later this month the board consider for approval. Let's see, give me one moment here to get that presentation pulled up here. I had it and I think I closed it, unfortunately. Get that back. Of course, when I need it, it's not right in front of me.
Brendan, if you'd like, this is Doug. I can pull it up and just tell me when to change slides if you'd like.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug.
You got it.
Scrambling to find it here. Appreciate that.
Problem.
If you have it handy. Thank you. There we go. All right, very good. We can move on to the next slide.
Mr. Morgan, I'm so sorry. I'm going to interrupt real quick. If somebody from the board office can double check the link for CART, the streaming is not working. You can go ahead and continue. Sorry.
Thank you very much. So as I was mentioning here, we'll talk a little bit about the background of RTD's debt and government debt in Colorado in general from a very high level. We'll talk a little bit about the recommended action that's on the agenda here, and we'll talk about the next steps to potentially move forward with this recommendation. So we'll start with the background, and to start any conversation about government debt in Colorado, it would be appropriate to start with TABOR. As I'm sure you're all aware, TABOR is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and it's an amendment to the Colorado Constitution. One of the things it does, among many others, is it requires voter authorization to authorize new multi-year obligations or new debt, essentially. Historically, RTD has used two primary borrowing tools, the first of which are sales tax revenue bonds. Those are fall under that TABOR requirement to get voter authorization. Voters did authorize debt way back in 2004, but as of today, 20 some years later, RTD has no available voter authorized debt capacity remaining. You will see it on our balance sheet, and we are paying it off over time, all that fast tracks sales tax revenue bonds that we've issued over time. The second one, primary borrowing tool that RTD has often used are called certificates of participation, or COPs for short. Those do not require voter authorization, and we'll talk a little bit more about those on the next slide. Doug, thank you. As far as bonds go, the sales tax revenue bonds that RTD has issued, has issued are secured by a pledge of future sales and use tax revenues. Those revenues are pledged to repayment of the debt at the time of issuance of the bonds. They're primarily used for major infrastructure or large projects, like our Fast Tracks project, for example. Certificates of participation, as I mentioned, do not require voter authorization, and that is because they do require annual appropriation from the board as the board sets the budget every single year. This avoids the multi-fiscal year obligation because it sort of renews every year. These are structured as lease purchase agreements, and they're secured by collateral, typically whatever it is that the government's buying. In RTD's case, we buy buses and rail cars. Historically, we've also financed a portion of the North Metro project, or what's today the N Line, using certificates of participation. The third major bullet on this slide talks about the other category, which is really our TABOR and non-TABOR portions of the Eagle P3. That financing related to the Eagle P3 has a portion of the financing that is a revenue pledge, that's the TABOR portion, and a portion that is annually appropriated, just like certificates of participation, and that's the non-TABOR payment that we make, and it's tied to the operations of Denver Transit Partner. Next slide. As far as RTD's debt obligations, this slide talks about some characteristics of those obligations. We've issued our debt historically. We like to have budget certainty. Having fixed interest rates and fixed terms allows us to know how much we owe and when it's going to be due. It's very helpful for forecasting, budgeting, etc. Our current annual debt service is approximately $250 million, and that's a large chunk of the budget. So it's very important that we know how much is coming due and when it's due. Some of the debt was issued taxable. Some of it was tax exempt. And what that means is the investors that buy these bonds, sometimes they have to pay taxes. Sometimes they don't, depending on the tax status of the bonds at the time that they are issued. This greatly impacts the interest rates that investors are willing to pay. And from an RTD's perspective, we issue one or the other depending on the use of what we're financing. There's various IRS rules and regulations around what you can do with the financing proceeds of taxable debt versus tax-exempt debt. So you'll see both of those on our financial statements. Call provisions. So I personally love call provisions for RTD. The municipal bond market typically expects a 10-year par call, meaning that 10 years after the debt is issued, the issuer, RTD, has the option to call or prepay that debt and either pay it off permanently or refinance it with cheaper debt. It's a very powerful tool for us. We take advantage of that frequently to refinance for savings. And historically, we've also done it to free up some cash flow during economic hard times. It's a very powerful tool. So we love our cash flow call provisions and keep them coming. When the debt is structured, how do we set it up? Well, we like efficient cash flow and flexibility. We tend to, this ties back to the call provisions where we try to stagger them so that we try to have one every year. It doesn't always work out that way, but with the amount of debt we have a call almost every year where we have an opportunity to refinance some debt and lock in some savings going forward. I think that's it for this slide. Doug, next slide. Now, this obligation trends. This is a great chart Doug put together and has been including for the past year or so in various presentations, showing our debt in the blue bars here, the bar chart, and then the pension liability in red on top of those. And you can see across the bottom here, this stretches from 2019 through 2024. And you can see we've made significant progress over the past several years, paying down the debt and reducing those pension liabilities. In total here, you can see these bar charts have moved from about $4.2 billion in total back in 2019 to approximately $3.5 billion here at the end of 2024. So making nice, steady progress towards paying off these liabilities. This slide shows a great view of what our debt service payments will be, or our principal and interest payments will be over time. On the left, you'll see the first year is 2024. You see the final little red bar on the bottom. That's the old T-Rex debt, our senior bonds. Those were repaid last year, now fully paid off. And you can see we continue to make the fast tracks and certificates of participation payments, et cetera, all the way out until 2050, when the final fast tracks bond is currently scheduled to be repaid. All right. That's it for the background. Moving on to the current recommendation. So RTD issued certificates of participation back in 2015. They're referred to as the Series 2015A COPs. They were issued to finance equipment and as well as buses and light rail vehicles. Today, we've been working on paying that down over the years, and today we currently have approximately $107 million outstanding, and it will be available to refinance in the coming months. In the current interest rate environment, we believe this refinancing can save a meaningful amount of money. these numbers on this slide here, you'll see $15.4 million of savings through 2040. That's the gross savings. And that works out to a present value savings, if you prefer that metric, of $4.1 million or 3.84% of the par outstanding. We just refreshed these numbers with our financial advisor on February 6th. That $15 million number now has been revised a little bit. It's up to $24 million. The net present value savings is currently $5.1 million. And the percentage number there is 4.73, so an even bigger percentage savings of par. So things have improved, and we've refined those numbers as well over the past month. So it looks like an even more attractive transaction than we had originally thought when we started down this path. Next slide. Okay, next steps. Well, next steps really involve the attached resolution, certificate resolution. That resolution gives authority to the general manager and CEO or her delegate or the chief financial officer to move forward and execute this transaction. There's also parameters that require a minimum NPV, net present value savings, of at least 3% or more. So that sort of guarantees that it's a good deal for the district, or at least a minimum threshold of economic value for the district of 3%. It also requires that the final maturity not go beyond 2040. That is the current final maturity of the 2015 certificates of participation. So the debt would still be repaid in the same amount of time or shorter. So that resolution, I'm sure you've all read it. It really sets out the requirements for this transaction to move forward, should the board decide to approve it. We've been on this project, we've been working with our financial advisor, or today they're called municipal advisor, Michael Newman from Hilltop Securities. I believe he's on the call today. Our internal counsel, our external bond counsel at Hogan Lovells, as well as our disclosure counsel at Butler Snow. We've got a great team of professionals that we work with that help us ensure that transactions like this get executed in the most beneficial manner for the district. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Vice Chair Banker.
No questions, Brendan, but I just wanted to thank you. How did you obtain another, what is it, almost, was it 9 million additional savings?
Yes, so the numbers that have changed, our estimate that you saw on the slide there, those were created back on January 6th. The numbers that I mentioned were from February 6th, so there's multiple parts that go into it. One part is just simply the change in the interest rate environment during that period of time. Another major factor is that as we move along with this process, we identified this as a good opportunity and got the wheels rolling. And as we dug deeper and deeper, we also found that we had some additional funds remaining. It was approximately $6 million remaining but sitting currently in the debt service fund, which is where we contribute money to pay the debt service, the principal and interest payments that are due 6 months from now. So we have cash sitting in there. So that cash has already sort of been committed to the next debt payment. So we're going to contribute that to this refinancing as well. So it helps us pay down the debt. Currently, that debt I mentioned is around $107 million outstanding. And we expect that number to get closer to $87 million by the time a transaction like this was done. So reducing about $20 million of debt off of our balance sheet.
Wonderful. And then at what point do you lock in the interest rate? Is it as soon as the board passes the resolution?
Oh, that's a great question. I did not mention that. So yes, assuming the board approves this resolution, we will work with the syndicate of banks that we have selected from our underwriter pool to schedule a date to price these bonds and sell them to the public market. It'll be sometime in March. And then financial close would be about a month later at some point in April.
Okay, wonderful. Great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? I don't see any hands, so let's move the question. Are there any no votes on this item? Looks like that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. Make sure I'm on the right part here. Okay, our third and final item. It is to authorize an authorizing resolution for the Federal Transit Administration, the FTA, funding for the Board of Directors to approve resolution number blank, series of 2025, authorizing the General Manager and CEO to be responsible for applying for and legally committing RTD to compliance with terms of awards from the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have the movement as Director Banker and the second as Director Geisinger. I'd like to ask Doug McLeod, our Chief Financial Officer, to present this item to the committee. Please
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Chair Guzman. Thank you. Appreciate that. RTD is a recipient, a direct recipient of federal funding from the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA. So I will just summarize what's in the board report, see if there's any questions. Essentially, as a direct recipient, RTD must meet certain reporting requirements, compliance requirements, legal requirements, etc. Excuse me, my light, I have an automatic light in my room just turned off. And as a recipient of federal funding from the FTA, RTD primarily receives two types of grants from the FTA, one being formula funding, which RTD receives every year in the form of a Section 5307 preventive maintenance grants, which approximates about $150 million a year. So it's a significant income stream for RTD. In addition, discretionary grants, Section 5309 grants, periodically become available, for which RTD might apply for, depending on if they align with the strategic plan, to help offset RTD's internal costs. In both cases, these grants, or in all cases, virtually grants require a local match, which requires RTD to put in some of its own funding in order to receive additional funding from the FTA. I mentioned that there are several certifications, requirements, things that RTD has to adhere to. One thing that we'll talk about is the external auditors, Plante Moran, also look at RTD's federal funding and audit that. It's called a single audit that is audited every year. So that's an example of some of the regulations and reporting requirements that RTD must follow. So this resolution is actually the result of a letter that was received from the FTA to RTD on December 6th, 2024. And it's really requesting that recipients of FTA federal funding adhere to enhanced reporting requirements. And I would add that there are several reporting requirements currently that RTD adheres to in applying for and receiving grants. General Manager CEO Johnson is the authorized executive. There's certain certifications and assurances that must be done every year. This is an additional administrative reporting requirement that's required by the FTA. The FTA has asked that this resolution be available from all recipients by March 5th, 2025, in order for agencies and other entities to continue to receive FTA federal funding. So this resolution really requires the opinion of council to ensure that legal compliance is followed, as well as a resolution from the board of directors that authorizes RTD to be responsible for applying and legally committing to the terms of federal awards. So by signing this resolution will actually be used in RTD's filings for application of federal awards from the FTA, as well as ongoing awards that have already been received, in which RTD will be drawing down funds. So that's a quick summary, Mr. Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee? I don't see any. Thank you so much, you guys, for reading and doing our homework. I love it. This makes our meeting so much easier. I do want to point out that in our board packet on packet page 37, it does list several different types of grants, including the 5339, section 5339 grant, which is for bus and bus facilities. Very important for us for ongoing planning with our facilities and fleet transition planning. I'm getting the nod from the CEO. I got that in the right order. Thank you. But also, we work very closely with, I believe we're in Region 8, if I'm not mistaken, of the FTA. And so we need to make sure that we have this paperwork done. This is not unusual to have to file this, but it's a more formalized administrative process that they've requested of us. So with that said, if there are no objections, let's move the vote. Are there any no votes on this matter? Seeing and hearing none, that passes unanimously from the committee. Thank you very much. This meeting is moving right along. I appreciate it. All right. There are no additional discussion items for today's meeting. Are there other matters to discuss? Director Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that our audit committee is meeting, and at that audit committee meeting, Plant Moran, our external auditor for financial matters, will be giving a presentation at the audit committee, and they have interviewed a few folks on the audit committee about potential risks and that type of thing with the audit, and they will be presenting at our audit committee meeting. And just wanted to give folks a heads up on this committee that will be coming before they do their audit work in last week of February and first week of March. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the board members of a couple of things. We have sent out an email asking information from you all for your bios for the website. And that does, while that might seem like a non sequitur, there's actually some important documents related to the Series 2015 refunding you all just recommended for approval to the full board. We need to list your occupation. So please get that information back to the board office as soon as you possibly can. Additionally, I wanted to mention this earlier in the conversation around the work plans, but I neglected to do so. The board office has compiled a timeline that we will be sharing with all directors. Given the inclusion on the work plan for maybe not necessarily this committee, but several of the other committees, of items that are really the genesis for which is coming from directors, we want to make sure directors are aware of the same internal deadlines that we have for staff for getting documents and items to the board office for publishing in the packet, so that we're not scrambling at the last minute to pull everything together for your collective review. And with that, Committee Chair Guzman, I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, committee members, please review the email that was sent out to us about the zero fare request. You should have that in your email. Also, I did request to be sent out to all of you. There's a podcast called Transit Unplugged. On Monday, they were talking about some of the new FTA regulations that are going into effect that could affect TNCs working with public transportation. The rules are under review right now. It gives a really good summary of what's going on, and the links to the FTA website are located in the podcast notes. I sent out through Spotify. I'm not trying to make anybody use anything specific, but at least you can pull up the information from the email and review that at your leisure. It's about 30 minutes. It was a good conversation relevant to what we're working with here in Denver and the financial impacts of what could be coming, to be aware of that for everybody's edification on this committee and on the other committees. The next Finance and Planning Committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 11th. At that meeting, we are not set to take any actions, but we will have many significant discussions, including those on revisions to the fiscal policy, the progress on the report for finishing fast tracks, a review of our 2024 budget to actuals, an overview of the budget process, and a conversation around identifying peer agencies for cost efficiency comparison. Personally, I'm most excited about the last item. As I mentioned, we have been looking for some time to develop a list of peer agencies. And, we get compared to a lot of different agencies all the time. So we need to define what that means for RTD, and working with staff to identify those, working with the board members to make sure that we agree, will make our jobs and our lives much easier, because when we know with whom we're comparing ourselves, we're able to compare properly. There are a lot of differences between transit agencies. You've heard it before. I'm going to repeat it here. When you have worked with one transit agency, you have worked with one transit agency. We don't want to compare apples to fish, and we want to make sure that we are making the right comparisons for the right reasons. So we are going to dig into that and make sure that we understand our perception of ourselves, but also help to educate the public on what those comparisons could and should look like. I look forward to that conversation. Good to see you all. Without anything else, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Catlin. We are now adjourned at 6:15 p.m. Thank you so much.